The room froze when she wouldn't stop. One question, over and over, like a broken record, and then Caroline Levitt snapped in a way no one saw coming. What happened next left everyone speechless, jaws dropping in the packed Washington, D.C. briefing room. Cameras hummed along the back wall, their lenses locked on the podium where Caroline stood, cool and collected. She'd faced tough crowds before, but this day, it crackled with something electric, something heavy. The air buzzed with unspoken stakes, and every eye was glued to her. Hey, what do you think? Could you handle that kind of pressure? Drop a comment below, and let me know. Caroline adjusted the mic with a quick flick of her wrist. Good afternoon, folks. Let's dive in. Hands flew up instantly, reporters itching for a scoop, their voices overlapping in a hungry chorus. She pointed to a guy she recognized, a big shot from a national network. What's the administration doing about tax cuts? He asked, pen hovering. Caroline didn't miss a beat. Her answer rolled out smooth and polished, the kind of response she'd practiced 100 times. Another journalist jumped in, something about education changes. She handled it just as easily, calm and in control, steering the conversation like a pro. But then, a voice sliced through the noise, sharp and bold. Ms. Levitt, let's get to the real stuff. It was Emily Harper, the fiery liberal reporter who always stirred the pot. Caroline knew her too well. Always pushing, always hunting for a fight. Emily sat near the front, leaning in with a sly grin, her pen tapping a steady beat on her notebook. The room tilted a little, like everyone sensed a storm brewing. Caroline kept her cool. Go for it, she said, voice steady as steel. Emily didn't hesitate. Are the administration's policies meant to hold certain communities back? The numbers don't lie. Her words landed like a punch, and a few eyebrows shot up around the room. Caroline raised a hand, unruffled. I've covered this before. Our focus is on helping every American, no exceptions. If you've got something on today's agenda, I'm all ears. A ripple of whispers spread through the crowd, but Emily wasn't done. She leaned closer, eyes glinting. You didn't really answer, though. Yes or no? Does it suppress people? Caroline cut in, firm but composed. I answered already. Let's move on. She nodded to another reporter, but Emily's voice rang out again, loud and unrelenting. Why dodge it? It's a simple question. The tension spiked, some reporters squirmed, others perked up, sensing drama. This wasn't just a briefing anymore, it was a showdown. Caroline took a slow breath, her hands resting on the podium. I'm not dodging. I'm sticking to the point. Next question. But Emily wouldn't quit. So, no comment then, she pressed, her smirk growing. The room went quiet, not a peaceful quiet, but the kind that feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to explode. Caroline shifted her stance, gripping the podium a little tighter. I've said my piece. Moving on. She pointed to someone else, but Emily interrupted again. Why is it so tough to just say it? A tiny spark of frustration flashed in Caroline's eyes, just a flicker, but enough to notice. The cameras caught it, zooming in, hungry for every detail. This was getting personal, and everyone knew it. Caroline drew a breath, her voice steady but edged. I'm not here to waste time. If you got something fresh, ask it. If not, others deserve a turn. Emily smirked again. Fine. New question. Why is this administration scared of being open? A few gasps slipped out, pens scratched faster, and the room buzzed with nervous energy. Caroline blinked once, her grip tightening for a split second before she let go. Then she smiled, not a friendly one, but a knowing one. Openness? That's our whole deal. But this is you putting on a show. Emily's grin wavered, just for a moment. Another reporter tried to jump in. Caroline, if I could, but Emily cut him off. So, you're brushing off real concerns as a show? The cameras swung between them, catching every twitch, every word. This was no ordinary press conference anymore. It was a battle, and the stakes were climbing fast. The atmosphere in the room thickened as Emily Harper's words hung there, daring Caroline Levitt to bite back. Everyone felt it, This wasn't just a sparring match anymore. It was a full-on clash, and the cameras were eating it up. Caroline stood tall behind the podium, her face a mask of calm, but her eyes told a different story. She wasn't new to this game. Reporters always tried to rattle her, but Emily? She was on a mission to steal the spotlight, and it was working. Caroline took a slow breath, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make people lean in. "A free press matters," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. "It's about accountability, not turning this into your personal stage." A few reporters murmured, glancing at each other. Some nodded faintly, others scribbled like mad. Emily chuckled, shaking her head. "My stage? I'm just asking what people deserve to know." Her pen tapped once, loud in the hush, and she fired again. "So, are you dodging because you can't answer, or because you won't?" The question landed like a spark on dry grass. A couple of journalists sucked in sharp breaths, bracing for the fallout. Caroline let out a measured sigh, her gaze steady. "I'm not playing this game. This briefing's about the issues, not you." Emily's smirk flickered, then she leaned back, crossing her arms. "Right, because expecting real answers is a game." The sarcasm dripped from her words, and the room buzzed again. Some reporters looked annoyed, others thrilled by the fireworks. Caroline adjusted the mic, stepping back a fraction. "We're done with this," she said, her tone final. Emily's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" Caroline didn't blink. "You're not here to talk. You're here for a headline. Stay and listen if you want, but I'm not feeding this anymore." Emily laughed, short and dry. "So, shutting down the press." "Got it." The words were a jab, and Caroline's jaw tightened, just a little, but the cameras zoomed in, catching the crack in her armor. The air turned heavy, like the whole room was holding its breath. Everyone knew what was coming. Caroline glanced toward the security guard by the door, not a word, just a look. The officer stepped forward, slow and deliberate, his presence shifting the mood from tense to electric. Emily caught it too. Her smirk vanished. "You're kidding me," she said, quieter now but sharp enough to sting. "This is really happening?" Caroline stayed silent, letting the moment speak for itself. Emily didn't budge at first. She sat there, pen resting on her notebook, sizing up her options. She could dig in, force them to drag her out. Oh, that'd be a clip for the ages. Or she could walk away, keep the upper hand, and spin it her way later. The room watched, waiting for her move. Caroline didn't flinch, her hands steady on the podium. Finally, Emily grabbed her bag, standing with a slow, deliberate grace. "This is a joke," she muttered, loud enough for the mics to catch. Then, one last shot as she headed for the door. "You can kick me out, but the truth doesn't leave that easy." The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence hit like a wave. Nobody moved. The cameras kept rolling, lenses darting between the empty chair and Caroline. Some reporters stared at their notes, pretending to write. Others just gawked. Then a voice broke through from the back. "Caroline, was that the right call?" She turned, her expression calm but firm. "It had to be done." Another piped up, hesitant. "Won't this blow up in your face?" She exhaled, a faint smile tugging at her lips. She knew it would. Oh, she knew. By the time she stepped off the podium, her phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Aides hustled over, whispering fast, their faces tight as they scrolled their screens. "It's trending already," one said, voice low. Hashtag silencing the press is taking off. Caroline didn't need to look. She could feel the storm building, ready to crash over everything she'd worked for. But she wasn't shaking yet. This wasn't her first rodeo, and she had a plan brewing. Caroline Livitt strode down the hall, her heels clicking against the polished floor, her phone still buzzing like a beehive in her pocket. Her aides trailed close behind, their faces pinched with worry as they flicked through updates. "It's everywhere," one said, holding up her screen. "Big outlets are jumping on it. Some say you crushed it, others are screaming press freedom's dead." Caroline stopped short, letting out a dry laugh. Press freedom? For a one-woman circus? She shook her head, pushing open her office door. The aide hesitated, scrolling fast. They're calling it Levitt versus the truth. Emily's already on air, milking it. Caroline leaned against her desk, arms folded. Of course she is. What's our side saying? The aide perked up a bit. Our folks love it. Conservative hosts are all over it, saying you stood tall. The base is fired up. Caroline nodded, slow and thoughtful. And the White House. The aide's face tightened. They're keeping quiet so far, no praise, no slap on the wrist. Watching, I guess. Caroline smirked, glancing out the window. Down below, news vans were pulling up, reporters spilling out like ants, mics ready to pounce. She could already picture the headlines, half cheering her on, half tearing her apart. She wanted this, Caroline muttered, almost to herself. And we handed it to her on a silver platter. The aide bit her lip. So, what's our next move? Caroline didn't answer right away. She tapped her fingers on the desk, mind racing. This wasn't just a hiccup, it was a wildfire, and she needed to get ahead of it. Show me what she's saying, Caroline said finally. The aide pulled up a clip, and there was Emily Harper, perched in a studio, her face all serious and wronged. I was just doing my job, she told the anchor, voice steady but dripping with drama. I asked fair questions, and they hauled me out. That's a red flag for anyone who cares about truth. The anchor nodded, all grave and concerned. Did it feel personal? Emily sighed, a perfect practice sigh. Not personal, but it's a hit to what I stand for. Journalism's under fire here. Caroline rolled her eyes, so hard it almost hurt. Under fire? She turned it into a soap opera. The aide smirked but kept scrolling. She's booked solid. Every network wants her now. Caroline paced to the window again, watching the crowd grow outside. This was no surprise. Emily had played her cards right, and the outrage machine was churning full speed. But Caroline wasn't about to let it run her over. An aide popped his head in, waving his phone. You've got to see this. She followed him to the hall, where staff huddled around a TV. A conservative host was on, replaying the full briefing clip, the one with Emily interrupting nonstop. He paused it, jabbing a finger at the screen. This isn't reporting, it's a tantrum. She pushed and pushed till she got the boot, then cried victim. His panel nodded fast. Total setup, one said. She wanted the cameras, not the facts. The host grinned at the audience. Caroline didn't cave, she cleaned house. Caroline crossed her arms, a flicker of relief washing over her. At least someone saw it her way. But she knew the other side wouldn't let up. Mainstream channels were already spinning it as a dark day for democracy. This'll drag on, an aide said, reading her mind. Yeah, Caroline replied, but we've got the real story out there now. She turned back to her office, the wheels in her head spinning faster. Let's drop the full video, she said suddenly. The aides blinked. The whole thing, one asked. Yep, Caroline said, voice firm. No edits, no spin, just the raw feed. Let people watch it and judge for themselves. The team scrambled, typing up a quick post. See it all. Caroline Levitt and reporter exchange, unfiltered. Within an hour, it was live, racking up views like wildfire. Thousands in minutes, comments pouring in. Some cheered, some raged, but the truth was out there, naked and loud. Caroline leaned back in her chair, watching the numbers climb. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, but she'd just flipped the script, and Emily wasn't the only one with a megaphone now. The video hit the internet like a thunderclap, and Caroline Levitt watched the views skyrocket from her office chair. No fancy cuts, no voiceovers, just the raw, unfiltered showdown between her and Emily Harper, laid bare for the world to see. The post was simple. Watch it all, decide for yourself. Comments flooded in fast, some shouting her name like a hero, others slamming her as a villain. Her phone pinged with a text from a media buddy. Nice one, Kay. This steals their thunder. But Caroline knew better. Thunder doesn't quiet down that easy. She clicked on a live feed of Emily, now a star on some cable news set, her face all earnest and wounded. I was just digging for answers, Emily told the anchor. leaning forward like she was sharing a secret. And they shut me down. That's not how a free country works. The anchor furrowed his brow, playing along. So, what's this mean for journalists? Emily paused for effect. A little too long, Caroline thought, then sighed. It's a warning shot. Ask too much, and you're out. Caroline snorted, locking her phone. A warning shot? She's the one firing drama bombs. The split was crystal clear. Out there in TV land, the story was splitting into two camps. On one screen, a conservative host waved his hands, replaying her video. Look at this. Emily's yapping over everyone, hogging the mic. Caroline kept it classy, shut down the chaos. His guests bobbed their heads. She's a pro, one said. Emily wanted a meltdown, not a story. But flip the channel, and it was a different tune. Pundits frowning, tossing around words like dangerous and censorship. This chills free speech, one argued. A reporter gets axed for pushing back? Caroline's aides buzzed around her, tracking every ripple. It's a mess out there, one said, scrolling X. Half the posts back you, half say you crushed democracy. She smirked, leaning back. Democracy's fine. They just don't like losing the spotlight. The numbers on the video kept climbing, tens of thousands now, and climbing fast. People weren't just watching, they were picking sides, yelling into the void of the internet. Memes popped up too, some with Emily as a martyr, others with Caroline as a queen dodging arrows. The debate raged on talk shows and podcasts, everyone with an opinion and a microphone. A grizzled old reporter, one Caroline actually liked, cut through the noise on a late-night panel. Let's get real, he said, voice gravelly. Emily wasn't chasing truth. She was fishing for a viral clip, and she hooked it. Caroline gave her an answer, didn't like it, kept poking. That's not journalism. That's a stunt. The others squirmed, not expecting the bluntness. The host tilted his head. So, Caroline's in the clear? The old guy shrugged. I'm saying we've got to call it what it is, showbiz, not reporting. Caroline felt a spark of hope hearing that, like a lifeline in the chaos. But she wasn't naive. The folks who'd already painted her as the bad guy weren't about to flip. Her aide ducked in, face tense. Interview request, big network. Caroline waved it off fast. Nope. I'm done dancing for them. The aide blinked. You sure? Could shape the story. She stood, grabbing her coat. The story's out there. Let it breathe. They can twist it all they want. She peeked out the window again. The street below was a circus. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting over each other. Her phone buzzed nonstop, but she ignored it, turning to her team. One last push, she said. Drop a statement. Keep it short.
En aide grabait de notepad.
What's the word? Caroline grinned, a glint in her eye. For words, watch the full video. The aide scribbled it down, nodding. That's it. That's plenty, she said, heading for the door. The statement went live minutes later, a quiet jab in a loud war. Caroline knew the storm wouldn't die soon. It'd swirl online, on air, everywhere. But she planted her flag and people were watching. The real fight wasn't about Emily anymore. It was about what stuck in people's heads when the dust settled. And Caroline was betting on the truth cutting through the noise, one view at a time. The dust didn't settle. It churned harder, whipped up by every click and share across the web. Caroline Levitt's statement, watch the full video, sat there like a quiet bomb, ticking away while the world argued over what it all meant. Her office hummed with tension, aides darting between screens, tracking the chaos. Outside, the reporters camped out, their voices a dull roar through the glass. Caroline stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the circus she'd sparked. This wasn't about winning everyone over. She knew that was a long shot. It was about planting a seed, letting the truth fight its own battles. Hey, quick question for you. What would you do in her shoes? Stick around. We're wrapping this up. The internet was a battlefield now. On one side, her fans waved the video like a flag. Caroline's a rock star, they typed, sharing clips of her shutting Emily down. On the other, Emily Harper's army fired back, posting edits of her exit with captions screaming, "Press under attack." Talk shows fueled the fire. Conservatives cheered Caroline's grit, while others mourned a dark day for reporters. Memes flew fast, Caroline dodging Emily's jabs like a boxer, or Emily as a damsel tossed out in chains. It was loud, messy, and unstoppable. Emily wasn't slowing down either. She bounced from studio to studio, her story growing sharper each time. "I stood for the people," she told one host, eyes wide with conviction. "And they silenced me." Caroline caught a clip on her phone, shaking her head. Silenced? She's louder than ever. The numbers didn't lie. Emily's face was everywhere, her bookings stacked for days. She'd turned one ejection into a gold mine, and Caroline had to admit, the woman knew how to play the game. But Caroline's move with the video was paying off too. Views piled up, hundreds of thousands now, and some started seeing through the spin. A random commenter nailed it. "Watch the whole thing. Emily's a drama queen. Caroline gave her chances." Another chimed in. "She didn't silence squat. Emily just wouldn't quit." It wasn't a tidal wave, but it was enough to nudge the conversation. Truth was clawing its way out, bit by bit, even if half the crowd refused to look. The chatter hit a peak when that old-school reporter piped up again, the one with the gravelly voice. On a packed panel, he leaned in, cutting the fluff. "Folks, this isn't about freedom, it's about fame." Emily chased a moment, not facts. Caroline didn't budge, and good for her. The others fidgeted, caught off guard. "So, no harm done?" the host pressed. He grunted. "Harm's done when we let stunts pass as news. People aren't dumb. They'll see it if they watch." Caroline grinned at that, a rare flicker of warmth in the grind. Someone got it. Days dragged on, and the storm kept swirling, headlines, hot takes, X-threads tearing into every angle. Caroline stayed off the mic, letting her video do the talking. Her aides pushed for more. One begged, "Just one interview. Flip the narrative." She shot it down. "Nope. It's out there, let them chew on it." She knew the drill. Jump in now, and it's just more fuel for the outrage machine. The statement was her line in the sand, and she wasn't budging. By week's end, the noise softened, not gone, but fading into the next big thing. Caroline sat at her desk, scrolling the fallout. Her name still trended, split down the middle, hero or tyrant, take your pick. She leaned back, exhaling slow. This wasn't about one briefing anymore. It was a mirror for something bigger. How stories twist, how clicks trump facts, how loud voices drown out quiet ones. She'd weathered it, maybe even shifted it a little. That was enough. So, what's your take? Did Caroline nail it, or did Emily steal the show? Drop a comment. I'm dying to hear what you think. And if this hooked you, smash that like button and subscribe. Truth's a tricky beast. Sometimes it's right there if you're willing to look. Thanks for sticking with us. See you in the next one.